did hold a while. That was young kids.
Yeah, right, yeah. You got it. And the first one just down with my mind. Are the rest girls? No, okay, yeah. Trust me, like it is unreal. She's trying to pick it up. She's like 100 degrees. Oh, poor thing. No, kind of one of those things, but oh wow. So what do you think of the whole? Everything was like, I go back to school, I got a sheet. Yeah, my mom, I was only 15 months. Yeah, my mom said this is acting forever. Yeah, there you go. This is not up to right. Yeah, we need that. Yeah.
She has.
Yeah, no. Yeah. A lot of different points. Yep. No, that's good. After the whole festival, I did shut down. I wouldn't think anybody would be ever finished. The guy from Marion.
I do. About 175 gigs of pictures.
Have a camera, or did you use?
We took 3 cameras.
Just a big camera there when we went up.
Dodie. Not yet. Oh, just about. Another minute.
Do you want to see back? Sorry, Dave. Oh, no, you're fine. Jim thought I was gonna hold this thing up.
Yeah. It hit 6. We're slamming the hammer. You did. Does it?
Yeah.
Just like it.
Yeah, Jerm always said that to me too.
Oh, does he?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
You must be on the other side of the equator right there. Or something. Right there.
Time zone.
Yeah. The Earth hasn't spun enough.
Dodie meantime.
Yeah. Still spinning.
Take a chance. Welcome, everybody. We want to say good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Caldwell Urban Renewal Agency. It's July 10th. It's 6 o'clock. I want to thank you all for filling in while I was gone. Julie, thank you so much for chairing these meetings, and I did watch one live on YouTube, so truly it does have worldwide coverage. I got up at 3 in the morning to watch, and the second meeting I did not get up at 3 in the morning to watch, but I did review it afterwards. So thank you all for filling in. As is our custom, is there a conflict of interest with any of our commissioners over anything on the agenda this evening? We'll do that too. No conflicts, so would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Porter?
Here.
Commissioner Doty?
Here.
Commissioner Warwick? Here. Commissioner Brooks?
Present.
Commissioner Moore?
Here.
Commissioner Aldis?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia?
Here. Very good. We have a full house tonight. Brings us to our special presentations, and I don't believe that we have any on the schedule for this evening, so we will move on to public comment. If there are any members of the public that would like to address the Urban Renewal Agency on matters not on the agenda, now's your time, and I'm not seeing any, so we will move ahead to the consent calendar. What is your preference on the consent calendar? We have a motion for approval? We have a motion by Ms. Warwick and a second by Mr. Doty. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldis?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Well done. It takes us to old business, and we have none of that. Brings us to the first item of new business, and that's an action item to request a call for a public hearing at the next regularly scheduled Urban Renewal Agency meeting to be held August 14th at 6 p.m. for consideration of the proposed budget for fiscal year that begins October 1st, 2023 and ends September 30th, 2024. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Doty,
Second that?
a second by Mr. Garcia. Any comment or conversation or discussion? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldis?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes. Thank you. That takes us to action item number 2, to consider a resolution approving the final written notice of plan termination regarding the Caldwell East Urban Renewal Plan and associated increment financing provisions. Mr. Hilty, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. For those of you that have been on the Commission for some time, you might look at this and have a sense of deja vu. This was a step that was taken back in December when the Caldwell East Urban Renewal Area reallocation area reached its termination. The resolution in substantially the same form, and the letter was put together and sent to the Tax Commission at that time. We received it back saying they thought that it needed to be sent later. Which caused us, and when I say us, I mean primarily Mr. Waterman in our office, who's been tasked with many of these termination issues concerning the East area and its reallocation area, to look again at the statutes, and he really felt like we did it at the right time. There was no question about the contents of it. There was no question of it, that it needed to be done under the statute and that it was appropriate. There was just a question about timing, so we're going to send it again. That's really all this is, notifying them of the official termination of the area and giving them the relevant dates and tax years. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Hilty? Very good, thank you. Ms. Warwick?
Regarding Caldwell East Urban Renewal Plan.
Second. We have a motion by Ms. Warwick, a second by Mr. Doty. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Alder?
just a technical question. Should we read the resolution into the record by title, or is it required or not required? Okay.
Very good, thank you. No further discussion. Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldis?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Very good. Brings us to action item number 3, an update report from DeChase Nixis and Embarcadero Hospitality Group, and consider recommendation regarding the downtown development project located at 7th and Main. We are fortunate to have Dean with us this evening to address this, and welcome.
Do I need to give you my whole address and all that stuff? You want to put the rules? Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much.
And if you would wait as we verify that.
That's fine. If you want to check into that, call my wife, make sure that she wants me to come home tonight, would be great. Dean Pape, 401 West Idaho, Boise, Idaho. Thank you guys. It's great to be back and see all of you, some new faces on that side of the table, but as you guys have seen over the last couple of years, we are starting to see some of the fruitions of all the hard work that we have all done collectively to get here. We're not going to keep the building the yellow color that it is and has been for the last couple of months, but we thought we'd go ahead and put a better facade on that to better match the downtown that you guys have seen before. As you guys have known, those of you who have been working with us this entire time, one of the biggest goals that we've been working towards is the hotel, a future opportunity to bring the hotel forward. We've had a fair amount of great interest in bringing a hotel forward, and we brought on a third-party group, the Embarcadero group. They'll step up here in a second and give you some more background on the process that they went through, with hopefully the fruition to have a development partner or multiple opportunities to bring a development partner forward. What we are going to hear is the market is not supporting that. It's not going to bring forward the opportunity to have a good partner, and what we would recommend is a good partner that we would want to bring on board and that we'd recommend this community bring on board. We actually only received one response through the process. I'm sure that you've heard over the last couple of months that there have been different groups that have come forward of interest. When it came time to actually put something forward, we received one response. A lot of that, what you're going to hear, is really having to do with the markets that we're dealing with right now. Unlike working through the pandemic that we all worked through, now we're dealing with the financial markets that are not supportive on new developments, which is what I have to deal with day in and day out. And in a new market for a hotel such as the one we're in right now, it's a tough one to kind of enter into. And again, the professionals will talk into that. So although I was hoping to bring great praise, we've got a great partner or multiple opportunities to come forward today. We haven't got that in fruition. So we're coming today, one, to give you that information to digest, and two, to open conversations on how best to move forward in our partnership. Currently, our development agreement does have some requirements in there that will require us to come forward with breaking ground on a possible hotel. We're going to ask that to be amended, but we're also asking for you guys to provide us what you think is the best guidance for that amendment. We're not bringing that solution to the table. We want an open book and open conversation on what's best for the community at this point in time, knowing what the other developments that are happening in the area. So we're open to that. We can bring plenty of ideas, but as we've brought this one to the table and worked with this group and others in the community to bring the project forward that you guys see out there right now, we think that's the best next steps. And it may be a hold, it may be a wait, it may be we look at something different. We're open, and we want to hear what you guys think and talk with the community. Our focus, again, right now is we have a great project that's going to get finished here in the near future to bring more activity and more homes into downtown. And more, what I'm really excited about is more of that retail activity. So bring more of what you guys have felt over the last couple of years, but even more of an 18-hour lifestyle and not a 12-hour lifestyle. So with that, I will come back up in a minute to answer any other questions you may have about the current project that's going on. But I do want to introduce the folks from Embarcadero, who's going to give you some more insight on kind of the hotel market in general, what they heard for this possible opportunity, and what they may see as future opportunities.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sandra Storm, and this is Mark Keller.
Mark Keller. I was born in Twin, but I no longer have an address there, but we're from Oregon.
Yeah, and so we're with Embarcadero Hospitality Group. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that we've put together, really, as Dean says, to describe with you kind of what our process has been, the kinds of responses, the kinds of engagement that we got, and some of the challenges that we were facing in terms of really recruiting the right development partner for this project. And so with that, I will, what we want to cover today is up there. We want to share you some of our background as hotel consultants and the kind of work that we do and what our expertise is. Share with you a little bit about the RFQ process, the request for qualifications that we put out there, a little bit about the state of the market in terms of hotel development and what we're seeing, the responses that we got from the RFQ, and then recommendations that we have. So a little bit about our background. We are experienced hospitality consultants. We also have experience with development and with operations, and so we've been on, seen hotels from 360 degrees in terms of all of the different elements of it. Principals have combined 40 plus years in the industry. We've done a lot of consulting for cities and for ports, for planning and real estate firms, and for private developers as well. Recent recruitment projects we've been involved in that have been successful in Vancouver, Washington, on the waterfront there, for the Port of Everett in Washington, and then a community in Oregon called Independence, Oregon, that actually has a lot of similarities to Caldwell in that it is has been a city that's been very visionary and has really invested in the city itself and in activating the town. Experience with rural and pioneering projects, including in rural Independence, Oregon. And then we also have a lot of experience in emerging wine regions. And so when we heard about the Sunny Slope wine region and got to know that, that was really exciting to us in terms of being compelling for hotel development. So a little bit about our process. When we first were approached by DeChase Mixis about this opportunity in Caldwell, we did a deep dive. We did a market study. We wanted to identify what the different dynamics were in the market, what the customer drivers were, what the occupancy and rates looked like in Caldwell and in nearby markets, as well as kind of the regional implications in terms of growth in the region, and then really just kind of understanding what the corporate and business sect looks like, what the leisure sect looks like, what any kind of group travel looks like. So we did a deep dive, we did a market study, and we shared that report with DeChase Mixis as well as with the city here. We did several, as part of that, we did several interviews engaging with the city, with Destination Caldwell, with several of the potential customer drivers that I talked about, as well as with some of the local businesses. Again, to really understand what are the needs here in terms of lodging and hospitality.
And with the college, of course, as well.
The college as well. And actually, I mean, we really enjoyed that process. It's really an impressive community in terms of what the city of Caldwell has been able to do, obviously, with Indian Creek and with the plaza, with the kinds of activation, with attracting new businesses. And so it was really beneficial to have those conversations and really understand the momentum that is happening here, as well as the vision. So we released an RFQ. During that time, we conducted extensive outreach to hotel developers, to brand representatives, to brokers who work in that space. We engaged a number of interested developers with conversations. We had lots of great, phone conversations, a number of site tours, and responded to all the questions that they had. And so that was not just Mark and me who were having those conversations and meeting with people on site, but Steve was incredibly generous with his time and just a real knowledgeable resource for those developers in terms of what's happening in Caldwell, and hosted a couple of groups with tours. And there was substantial interest, and we had, pretty positive response. So we were expecting to get a number of responses, and I'll walk through kind of what happened instead. But we did have a lot of engagement. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is a little bit more about kind of our process and how we represented the opportunity to the development community. And so we were really clear with the RFQ in terms of what our goals were. Our goal was to identify a developer that really understands and embraces the city's vision for Caldwell, a developer that has the experience and the capacity to successfully complete the development. We've been involved in RFQ process where you get maybe folks who submit who are very aspirational but don't have a lot of experience in actually making a deal happen. And then has the capacity and expertise to operate the hotel or to bring in a qualified operator. Of course, once you build the hotel, you want to have a great operator who's going to represent the city well and represent this opportunity well. And a developer that sees the unique opportunities and challenges related to developing and operating it with this community-centric hotel and is excited about that opportunity, and then has successfully developed and operated upscale or above hotels. And so that was our goal in terms of the release of the RFQ. I know that you all likely know the strengths of this project, but I wanted to relay again how we represented it and how we see it as hospitality experts. And so the fact that this site is located in a high occupancy market with demonstrated consistent growth in a location that's highly walkable to restaurants and to downtown, the location itself is a real plus in our perspective. Of course, the nearby Indian Creek Park and the pathway and the plaza, these are unique and really attractive assets that create a sense of place for this potential hotel, and that's really compelling to hotel developers. It's kind of its own amenity to the hotel that the developer doesn't have to build, but it is just there for their guests to enjoy, and really helps to make the hotel more appealing and more profitable over time. The fact that it's adjacent to just a rich variety of fun and unique restaurants, shops, and walking paths. Of course, the highly programmed concerts and farmers markets. Every time we've been here to Caldwell, either to show people around or to meet with people as a part of this process, it's very impressive just how activated the plaza is and how many people are attending events and enjoying the community. The site offers the potential for a downtown hotel that fills this current void. There are hotels in Caldwell and in Nampa, but having something that's downtown like this that would be really unique and would be walkable and right in the heart of it all would kind of fill this void that currently exists. A downtown property with boutique elements, we feel like will capture guests that currently don't stay in Caldwell due to the current product options. And so we're talking about visitors to the Sunny Slope Wine Trail and the Ag Venture Trail, as well as parents and professionals that are visiting the College of Idaho, business visitors to and vendors of the Sky Ranch Business Park, and then guests for events at the Canyon County Fairgrounds and the Caldwell Event Center. And so these are all, this hotel we feel like would really capture some of those guests that are currently staying elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So a little diving into this more, and again, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I'm sure you're all aware of a lot of these strengths, but regional context was important. There's been dramatic growth in the Treasure Valley. Idaho, as a state, has grown rapidly. It has been the second fastest growing in the U.S. between 2010 and 2020. Boise metro area, of course, very fast growing, and in 2021, Caldwell was ranked the 13th fastest growing city. So the growth is really impressive. Trends like working remotely from home, that has suited communities like Caldwell well in terms of activation and growth. And just a wide variety of new residents and new businesses that are continuing to relocate in the Treasure Valley. So downtown Caldwell, again, the city has invested strategically in the downtown core and put forth this cohesive and compelling vision for the city. Obviously, the Indian Creek Trail and adjacent parks, the plaza, all of the events that happen at the plaza to really activate that space. And the new bicycle and pedestrian pathways, those again are all really important assets that we emphasize and that generally are really appealing to hotel developers.
And I want to say that we emphasize the winter, the incredible winter things that you've done as well. I mean, whoever had the vision, I don't know if it was one of you or somebody at GTLO, the amazing architects that helped design that with you, but the idea of the ice skating ribbon and the Festival of Lights, I don't know if the Festival of Lights predated this, but it's just an amazing thing. And typically, in hotels anywhere in the Intermountain West and the Northwest, there's a big fall off in occupancy between, you know, Thanksgiving and somewhere in March. And sometimes that goes into April. So the amount of love that you put into making this a four-season opportunity for all the businesses and all the people who live here is not just about the quality of life, but about attracting people here 12 months out of the year is amazing.
Yeah, and so again, recent developments that we emphasized in terms of the growth and the opportunity and telling that story. And again, Steve was very helpful in terms of telling that story. And again, as hoteliers, what you're interested in is who's going to stay at the hotel, right? And so the fact that these diverse customer drivers exist is really important and something to emphasize moving forward. But you've got wine and food tourism, you have corporate travel, so the Sky Ranch Business Park is a big deal. We spoke with several different businesses, Molex Industries, Kirk and Seed Company, about their needs in terms of hotels. The College of Idaho, anytime you have a university or college in town, can be really helpful in terms of driving stays, outdoor recreation, the airport. These are all folks that we talk with and I think have a really compelling story to tell. And so now kind of back to our RFQ process. We put this out, our proposal that was put out included all those strengths. We sent out lots of emails, had lots of phone conversations emphasizing these points. We reached out to 40-plus hotel developers from our network, as well as a number of leads that were generated by the city that we followed up on. We talked to major Boise hotel developers like the Braintree or Resolute Road Hospitality, Pinbridge Hospitality, the OB Hospitality Group. We talked with West Coast hotel groups like Columbia Hospitality, Merete, and Vesta Hospitality, and then independent boutique developers like, again, OB Hospitality. There's the Windrow Hotel out of Ellensburg, and then additional developers who we know have done kind of pioneering projects. And what we mean by a pioneering project is just a project where there's not kind of a comp set of the specific hotel that you can pull. And so we're talking about doing, the first hotel downtown Caldwell of its kind, and that requires a developer to really kind of do their work, to study and to understand, because they can't just pull a comp set of, 5 Hampton Inns in this area and show exactly how it's going to perform. And then we also reached out to major hotel brand representatives and several brokers. And so we talked with Marriott and Hilton and IHG and Choice Hotel, group of brands. With those folks, really we were just trying to see, they have their finger on the pulse of all kinds of developers that are looking for development opportunities. And so we reached out and had a number of conversations with them.
And with those 4 branding groups that Sandra was talking about, they have it changes almost every week, but they have somewhere around 47 brands amongst those 4 umbrellas. So it was a wide-reaching outreach to get to all the different brands.
And so the most common response that we got was a lot of enthusiasm about Caldwell. There was real recognition of what has been done and how exciting it is. But we were hearing over and over again that due to high interest rates, due to high construction costs, that they, as developers, really weren't focusing on ground-up development at this moment in time. And so that means they were either engaged in maybe looking at acquisitions or just putting a hold in terms of new development. And so we got a number of responses that fell into that lane. Again, I'm interested, thank you for sharing this opportunity with me. I'm very impressed with Caldwell. We're just not doing development right now, is a lot of what we got. Then there were several groups that did express more interest and had more questions and really wanted to engage with the opportunity. And so in those circumstances, we had conversations with them. Again, Steve had some great conversations, I know, with some folks that were interested, and they did really kind of, I think, consider submitting a response to the RFQ. With OB Hospitality Group in particular, they are the folks that have the Innit 500 in Boise. They have Innit 5th, it's the Innit 5th, in Eugene. They have the Innit 5th in Eugene, Oregon, Innit 500 in Boise. And they really, really dug into this opportunity and had indicated to us that they were planning to submit a response. So that was probably one of the bigger disappointments with this process, because they have an orientation toward boutique independent hotels. They really seemed excited about what was happening in Caldwell. And ultimately what they told us, unlike some of the other responses that they got, they are still interested in Caldwell, but they didn't love that particular site in terms of their investors and the profile of the kind of project that they are looking to do. And so that was the response that we got from OB Hospitality. And then finally, as Dean alluded to, we did get a kind of partial response that was pretty boilerplate. That was from a group called ERES out of Bozeman. And they do lots of, all kinds of development, including hotels. They do a lot of branded hotels. And, you know, I think this piqued their interest, but our sense in terms of our conversations with them was that there was somebody who works in development on their team who was really interested in this, but the principals were a little bit more reserved in terms of moving forward. And the submission that they made was pretty boilerplate. It didn't really speak to the attributes of Caldwell, and really just, I think, was kind of a means of throwing their hat in the ring. And so, just to give you, again, kind of some background on what we're looking at in terms of the market, this has been a historically difficult time, especially to get financing for hotels. And that's really what is slowing and or halting a lot of new development in the hotel space. And so I just pulled out, you can see in the presentation, from a couple of reports. CBRE had a report that just came out in June called Reduce New Hotel Supply in the Coming Years. And a quote from that is, you know, hotel development conditions are challenging. There's high construction costs, rising financing costs, fewer financing options because of some of the disruption in the banking industry, and, you know, a lot of market uncertainty. And then all of that kind of in the wake of COVID and the major disruption that was to the hotel industry nationally and really globally. Another quote from that article just speaks to the rate of growth that, you know, between 2016 and 2019, there was about a 1.8% growth. That dipped to 1.2 in 2020, 1.2 in 2021, and then 0.5 in 2022. I would say in 2023, you've seen an acceleration of some of those factors that are listed in this article. Part of the reason you see that significant drop between 2021 and 2022 is a lot of the new development that was happening in 2021 was financed pre-COVID. And so you're just not seeing a lot of projects post-COVID that are getting financing. There are some projects that are where they're not. We've seen some projects that have moved forward, again, that either were funded by a lender through a bank prior to COVID. A couple of projects we know where they've been, you know, completely financed by equity, but that's very, very rare in the hotel industry.
Yeah, and part of the challenge here is the Treasure Valley is in the hotel world very much known for its incredible characteristics over the past several years. It had much less of a drop during COVID. The average hotel in the United States lost 50%, 50, of revenue in 2020. And then they were down about 20% as compared with pre-COVID levels in 2021. And you take 2 years prior to that, the worst hotel slowdown had been during 2008, 2009. That was a 17.8% drop, and lots of people lost their businesses during that time. Now, there were a number of factors that happened nationwide so that not so many people had to turn in their keys. But the unfortunate thing is, even with the amazing things that have been going on in Boise and the Treasure Valley in terms of hospitality, and places like Bozeman and Bend in Oregon are other good examples where there have been, you know, just a great response to in the hospitality industry, is that even when a loan officer wants to give a developer a loan on a hotel, when they approach their executive vice president for loans, that person says, I can't take this to the board. I can't take this to this, because somebody else has handed in their keys to the hotel in downtown Seattle and downtown San Francisco and downtown Portland. And those are bigger markets, right? And so all the financial industry shares their information. And you'd think that people would evaluate every project on its own merits, but that in the hotel industry right now, that's not happening. Plus with the interest rates, as you're all aware, seems like every month the interest rates have been going up because this economy just keeps chugging along, and there are people that want to slow it down. And so there are people handing in the keys right now to very expensive hotels to lenders in, that own hotels in San Francisco in particular, but other metro areas as well.
Yeah, and a couple more points to, again, the challenges of the market that I have up here. A data point from Build Central Inc., which researches major hotel brands and development. So 59 of 98 projects that are under construction or were in the pre-construction phase this year in 2023 have paused since March. And then, again, part of the mix of this is with interest rates increasing and it being more challenging to get loans, construction costs have also continued to increase or to stay very high. And so between 10% and 20% in most markets is what the increase has been in terms of construction costs. And then, again, in general, just the pandemic effect with nationwide occupancy hasn't reached its pre-pandemic level. And there are tons of news articles out there about, projects being halted or being stopped. So that's the very unique environment that we were trying to recruit a developer in. And I would say the timing was just really, really challenging. It's not that the interest wasn't there or even the recognition of the opportunity amongst a number of different developers, but their ability to really put together a project and get funding, is what we were hearing in terms of challenges. And so just circling back to kind of what we hear and understand that the vision is and what we've encouraged in terms of, the conversations that we've had with developers is we think that you have just an exceptional asset in downtown Caldwell. It's an incredible community to be a part of. We would want for you to have a hotel that is going to represent that, is going to hit it out of the park, that is going to be a great asset to the community, to perform really well in terms of revenue, but also just to be a really special place that's a reflection of Caldwell. And so we have up there, a hotel downtown that captures the spirit and identity of Caldwell that's really designed to complement the unique dynamics of the site and of the region, and a place that will really activate the downtown. We didn't feel that the one submission that we got really reflected that. So it was difficult for us to recommend to DeShace Mixis to move forward, with that developer, given that it was so boilerplate and didn't really articulate a clear plan in terms of how to take advantage of this opportunity. Having said that, we do think that there's great potential here. It's really a matter of timing.
Yeah,
So,
and I would just add one other thing, and that is that what I was most worried about in this process is to have a bunch of people come forward that would put a really beautiful hotel in front of you, but then scale it back and then have something that would be a lesser kind of branding experience, either a brand that just is more ordinary in the eyes of the customer. And personally speaking, with all of the incredible work that you've done, I feared that. I'm glad that didn't happen. I'd be a little nervous that might happen in the one submission that we got. But I think it's the hardest thing in the world to do is to be patient in a situation like this. But I would also say that the thing that we saw immediately when we were studying Caldwell is that, like Independence, Oregon, that has this beautiful hotel on a river that they reconnected with. It was just all these overgrowth that had them away from, and a concrete plant that blocked the downtown from this access to the river. And now it's just amazing. But it took many, many years of incremental steps and doing the other things before all the stars aligned. And had they tried to recruit a hotel developer at the same time as we were trying to recruit one here, it wouldn't have happened. With that, I mean,
with that, if there are any questions.
We'd love to answer questions, and no matter how detailed. And Sandra mentioned OB Hospitality. We thought that, maybe there's an outside chance, even with all these interest rates continuing to rise even during the RFQ, that another of the Treasure Valley hotel developers would step in because of how well things are going in Boise. And again, they had nothing but positive things to say. Penbridge has several hotels in Boise and throughout the Intermountain West as well. And they love the project, but you know, when they can build for a similar price in downtown Boise in a proven market, you know, versus almost the same price here, it's tough for them to do it. And they can't even get loans right now for their project. They're developing things for a few years out, or trying to develop them for a few years out. So, but we love to answer questions and hear comments.
Yeah, we wish we had better news.
We wish we had better news.
Great, thanks for that report. Questions for Sandra or Mark? Mr. August?
I have like a whole bunch.
Okay.
Sure, that's great.
Fire away.
That's great. We love hotels. We love to talk about them.
So, you know, I've been on this board for a while. We have wanted a hotel downtown for a long time. And this particular location has gone through 2 or 3 bids, 2 or 3 processes at least. And we have repeatedly been told that a hotel will not work there. And that's why we kind of ended up with where we're at now with the retail and the housing. Is that something that, I mean, should we just take that off the table? What is your professional advice there?
It depends on your time frame, because it's a great question, and we're hired by cities all the time to, you know, look at infill of the things that were formerly something else and try to figure out with an urban planning team which, you know, what kinds of things should be built. And I would say it really depends on your horizon, your time horizon. I'm sure that Dean and others could bring in wonderful things for that space now that wouldn't hurt you at all. If you're looking for the right hotel, speaking as someone who bleeds the history of these kinds of places, we ended up doing the hotel in Independence. We fell in love with it so much, you know. And I grew up in Ellensburg, Washington, a college town that's not dissimilar in ways from Caldwell. Sandra grew up in the Dalles, Oregon, which is not dissimilar in some ways from Caldwell. And what I would hate for you to do is to kind of be all things to all people and just go get the next hotel that wants to come here. This is me speaking personally. So to have a Super 8 or something, nothing against Super 8, in that prime location, I'd rather you didn't have a hotel there at all in that specific location than have something that devalued the beauty and just the history and that reclaiming Indian Creek, reclaiming downtown Caldwell is just so exciting to us as hotel developers as well as hotel operators. So my answer to your question is, depends on your time horizon. And it depends also, like, the sequence of things that you want to get done. But there are plenty of good things that could be done on that site that aren't hotels right now.
Well, and that could contribute to making the site even more compelling to hotels over time.
Right.
I mean, having a really robust, and you've achieved so much already, but having these robust amenities that people can walk to, restaurants, those are all really appealing for hotel operators. In terms of those things that we were mentioning, having those amenities, but so that it could be something that you could do at that site that could even increase maybe the likelihood of a hotel coming in the future.
As long as something is within, I want to say, a 5 to 7 minute walk of the plaza, it will continue to be interesting over time. And I haven't taken a look at we feel like we've sort of memorized downtown Caldwell, but I don't know the history and the ownership of every lot that may or may not be available. It's a great question, and I'm not dodging your question at all. But I would say that for the kind of hotel that we would hope for you, based upon, you know, the passion for us that hotels are, I think it's probably unrealistic to count on there being money and lending to do it in the next, I want to say, 3 to 5 years, maybe. And the only reason I say that is because a lot of the money that would come in, you know, would choose to build on a block in Boise first, because of construction costs. Now, maybe that's gonna start to soften. I think lumber has come down, definitely. Concrete and steel, we've been hearing not so much, So people are still kind of nervous and labor. But it's not just interest rates and labor. It takes longer to build a project now than it used to, and the time value of money during a construction loan is much more risky and much more costly. You have a less expensive loan once you've actually opened, you can roll it into a less expensive loan. So I don't know if that helps you think about.
It kind of goes along with what we've been, other responses. My perception, and you can feel what I know in a thimble about the hotel business, but my perception is our hotels are all along the freeway, which is kind of a transient situation, stop and go. And I have always just been looking for something where people come downtown
Yeah.
for a purpose.
Yeah.
That's exactly
And that's
right.
what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
long-
well, and that's what we're hoping for you too, and I think that, that's the challenge now, is that most development looks at what exists and measures it and says yes or no, according to that. And so right now, they can measure downtown Boise, they can measure those hotels that are on the freeway, which, by the way, have great occupancy,
Yeah.
but very low rates.
Not high rate.
And so you get the kind of developer that's comfortable in that kind of lower rate space, which is not necessarily what you want to attract right downtown for something really unique.
But there are pioneering developers out there. It's only literally 3 to 5% of developers that build hotels that would take a close look at Caldwell. And it's not because Caldwell isn't fantastic, we think it is. It's because they have a formula, right? And they can measure, you can go to this company out of Tennessee and measure these 5 Hampton Inns, or ones that are reasonably close to a Hampton Inn, and get exactly how much rate and occupancy they have in a given market and say, oh, it's time to build a 6th. And that's 95% of hotel development out there. And so to your point, given that we have some, economy and mid-scale hotels along the freeway, most hotel developers that sit in offices in Denver and in San Francisco and New York just don't even think of anything else. But we know, we have seen with our own sweat and blood what happens when you have a town that is so much fun to be in, has so many great restaurants. How many places the best restaurant in a town are 35 miles or however long it is outside of a town and are right down here, and they're buying a piece of land because they want to get bigger? That's because I call it institutional memory. The people of this town, the mayor was mayor for how long? That happened also in Independence. And when you do that, you don't just have a bedroom community where people drive to Boise and work and come back. You've got people that love being here and love patronizing the businesses. And that's what the hotel we want for you. And that's costly. That's a lot more costly than a low-end brand. And that's part of why I say it's kind of a patient thing here. It has nothing to do with Egg Venture. It has nothing to do with your ice ribbon and everything that you've done. It just has to do with the external factors that are beyond any of your control.
Other questions? Go ahead. Ms. Warwick?
So what I'm hearing you say, and I don't disagree, in 5 to 7 years, that would be an ideal place to build what we want to build there.
And maybe sooner. It could happen sooner. You never know, right? I mean, what is true, for example, we know people that if the interest rates and construction costs moderate, when they moderate, that just because they love hotels as much as we do and they love hospitality, they would fall in love with the people and the place of Caldwell and be willing to make a slightly non-economic decision, right? Which is, okay, yeah, we could build our 9th hotel outside of, Bend, Oregon, or in Boise or whatever, but let's make our 9th hotel in Caldwell and really match that people where it is. Those people exist. They're not common, right? They exist. So it could happen faster than that, but yeah, if I'm looking at the calendar and seeing these historically high interest rates, what you just said, I think, is a reasonable, it's in the range,
So waiting 5 years for the perfect thing there for the next 75 is a great decision.
Yeah, because I think if you were to bring in a hotel to that space that was not everything that we're talking about, then yeah, you slowed it even further for the right project to come in.
Right. And whether it's that exact piece of land, that's the thing, is I don't know to what degree it would potentially disfigure things or not disfigure things at all. You know, I don't know. That's not our expertise. So whether it's that exact piece of land or something nearby, in our view, anything near Indian Creek itself, near the plaza itself, near the downtown core of the several blocks with all the restaurant activity, there's a lot. I see the lot that you guys thank you for buying that building that was vacant and making it, putting out, that's just west of this site. But I think there's potential further redevelopment, if I'm not wrong, in the area that's a little bit west of that as well, over time, possibly. So, yeah, I just would hate if because of the desire to get a hotel, you don't get the hotel you want. Exactly where it lives is less important to us on your behalf. If you had hired us, what we'd be preaching is what we are preaching, which is it's such a beautiful place. You will find the right person to develop. It's not likely to happen right now. Yeah.
Fair.
Mr. Rossi?
First, I'll support a little bit what you're saying, being part of the industry a little bit. And, you know, as interest goes up, architects get paid less. So we want to make sure those interest rates come down. But other than that, you know, working with the mayor, with master planning, kind of downtown Caldwell a little bit, a lot of these future ideas hinge on the hotel coming here, whether it be a civic center or other things like that, you know, big groups of people coming in town.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that component is what makes those master or future developments happen, just because they're always in the talks.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I also know how expensive it is to build down here. Knowing what the ground is, what's involved in building a building here is more so than probably any other downtown, dealing with the water issues and so on and so forth. So that I support, and I also support understanding that it has to fit this area, because that's what used to be here, you know, and I still hear people looking for a hotel downtown. In fact, Rob Pilot always talks about people circling that block because they see the sign, and he says you'll probably see 30 or 40 people a day looking for a hotel, just
Yeah.
nothing to be found. So we know there's a need there. It's just when, and we know the industry always goes up and down. I think as far as my support, I truly understand that it could probably happen sooner, especially as these other projects start developing. Maybe the cost isn't an issue anymore, knowing they'll get more capacity and more fulfillment in the hotel. But the only questions I have for you is during your RFP process, other than the interest rate and the cost of construction, was there any other concerns about parking or any other issues like that that we could
Well, there
possibly
were a lot
plan
of
for?
questions about parking, but we were really able to assure them that the city was working with Chase Mixis on a parking plan, and that wasn't a major concern for anybody. They understood that there's parking available, that the city was working with them, and so that, I don't think, was a prohibitive barrier.
No.
A lot of people asked questions about that.
I don't think it was prohibitive either. Structured parking is a challenge, right, because
Right.
of the expense of it at this point. You know, over time, I think organically, at some point in the future, maybe structured parking happens in downtown Caldwell. But you'd be surprised, even with, you know, the busiest day of the year, whatever that is. I'm not sure if that's the opening weekend for the Ice Ribbon or for some other festival. But what appears like a difficult parking problem for anybody who's lived here all these years is something that people from Boise are willing to put up with, let alone, you know, from Portland or Seattle. They don't mind walking a few blocks. Whereas it must feel to a native Caldwell, you know, if you can't park within, you know, a block and a half, oh, there's, you know, it's the end of the world. That's not, with the kind of audience that you're getting, when we were out in the Sunny Slope Wine Trail, Ag Venture Trail, and downtown here, we were seeing people from all over, license plates from Arizona, Texas, you know, the I-84 corridor, and certainly Utah and Washington and so on. Everybody, you know, those people would love to stay, to your point. They would love to stay in downtown Caldwell, and they would love to eat at your wonderful restaurants. And they just don't feel invited because of, you know, the kinds of places they want to stay. They don't feel invited by what's out on the freeway. And they don't feel invited by what's on the freeway in Boise either, you know. So at this point, they stay at the Inn at 500, or they stay at, you know, at the Grove Hotel or wherever. Or they head further west. There's a nice hotel in Baker City that's real small. And so it's hard for me to call it Baker City. It was Baker when I grew up. But anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, so but to answer your question, though, parking was part of the conversation, but nobody
I don't
got
think that-
scared off by
No,
parking.
I don't think so.
Yeah, as we see projects come through here, obviously part of making something successful is everything has to complement each
Yeah.
other, right? So, as we see projects come up, we want to make sure, you know, that hotel component is still there.
Yeah.
That way, when we talk to them.
Well, and I think that's really smart when you're
Yeah.
talking about kind of next steps, are
Yeah.
these conversations about what is going to support a hotel and
Right.
how can we work toward that in the interim so that it is
Yeah.
even more appealing over time.
One technical thing that's really cool about parking, I'm sorry, I thought you were, is that when people are parked at a hotel, is when you have the most number of parking spaces available. So, for example, if you, like driving, I don't know where you live, but if you live 4 miles outside of town, you like driving into the downtown core and having lunch, you're not competing with parking places that are going to be people staying at this hotel. They're going to be out on the Snake. They're going to be out, you know, at the egg. They're going to be doing the egg venture. They're going to be doing the Sunny Slope Wine. They're going to be, some of them are just going to be parked and walking around, but they're not. People trickle into hotels and they trickle out. So if you take your average Stinker Station or 7-Eleven, you know, any place that just has a convenience store, let alone a gas station, that has more people turning in and out of the parking lot during peak hours than a big hotel. Because people, think about the last 10 times you've stayed at a hotel. You arrive at all kinds of day or night, depending on when your flight comes in, depending on where you're driving in, and especially in this market. So you're not, what's cool is you're not creating traffic. Actually, you might be reducing traffic to some degree because there are tons of people that come here and a lot of them don't stay, right? But imagine all the people that would stay that come for ice skating and would love to just stay overnight, that are coming a short distance or coming a further distance from Twin and doing shopping and having a medical appointment or two, but instead of staying for 2 nights, they stay 4 nights and they spend a couple nights out here. We would just relish the idea to you know, we just see into the future as to all the marketing opportunities that exist with Destination Caldwell and all the events. We haven't even talked about, of course, the Simplot Stadium, but you have all these with the fair and everything. You've got so many events stacked up. But the cool thing is that it really doesn't affect the parking very much because they're going to be parked there from, on average, from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m.
But as part of your question is having more parking infrastructure and finding a way to make that available to a hotel developer, if that would be helpful, the answer is yes.
Oh, I'm sure it's helpful for everybody.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of these concerns were brought up in Nampa. And so I think that hotel that was built there at the Civic Center, alleviated all those questions they had and it's been very successful for them.
Exactly.
So I think that would work out here well too. So I'm in agreement as far as keeping that the way it is for now, so.
Yeah, and I don't know, Dean, if you have thoughts about the actual site itself as to whether that's a perfect site for the future for a hotel or another one nearby. I don't.
No. I mean, as I said before, like, that's an open conversation. We need to figure out what the best solution is for the community and move forward towards whatever that might be.
And I do think there was enough interest from some of these developers that staying in touch with them, you know, would be really beneficial. I mean, again, we had a lot of enthusiastic responses about what Caldwell has done. And so I think as the market is changed, as dynamics change and cycles change, you've got some people who are already, you know, have their eyes on the market.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks very much. Very comprehensive, and we appreciate that, Sandra, Mark. Mr. Hilty, under the DDA that we have on this project, what kind of flexibility is there for the agency to consider? And then we'll have Stephen come and give his observation.
Sure. It's contract, so it can be amended, and it would need to be amended. There are timeframes in there for proceeding with the development, by DeChase. You know, and I think I would characterize everything that you've heard as, you know, they've given it an honest effort, and now might not be the right time. So it could be amended in several ways. It could be amended to give them more time. It could be amended to permit a different project. Potentially could be terminated, a new RFP issued. We've discussed a new downtown area, right? So, because right now we have a sunset reallocation area, and we have projects that have been allocated urban renewal dollars, and there's nothing left in the tank. You know, so folding it into a new area is a possibility. But I think to understand, you know, certainly where we are, DeChase came on board agreeing to do this as phase 2, and they've run into trouble. And you know, whether or not you can force it to go forward and get what you want, I think is a serious question that we would need to consider. So a contract amendment, I think, is unless you want to go down that path, then a contract amendment is in the offing. Now, once we get there, I think what Dean is telling you, they're open to suggestion. They've got a problem they're facing right now, and there might be different ways to solve it. But ultimately, it would require an amendment to the existing DDA.
Okay. Mr. Chair. Mr. Doty.
Mr. Hilty, so one option would be if we were to give it back, just say rewrite the contract, they're gonna give the land back. Clearly, urban renewal sunsets in September. What happens to that land if they give it back to urban renewal? Does it revert to the city?
No, I think it could revert to the urban renewal agency. We may need to dispose of it at some point next year to the city.
But can we do that with urban renewal closed, meaning?
Yes.
Well, there's not enough time to put out an RFP, and like you said about the funds, by September, right?
Right. So remember, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead, you're fine. Thank you.
Yeah, so DeChase has rights under the contract, right? So it's a renegotiation amendment is a two-party process. They'd have to be agreeable to that. If they were, then certainly staff would evaluate what's the best way to go. But if the law requires us to transfer it back to the city, we would do that. The city, of course, can then turn around and transfer it back to the agency if there's a new area created, whether that's a broader downtown area or a site-specific.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Auger?
A couple of things. So I have no idea what you're thinking or where you're at, but they could come back to us with a new retail project or something like that we could reimagine. Is that potential?
That is not permitted under the contract without your approval. So that there is a concept design, and there's ideas about this has to be a hotel, and that was part of the deal back when this RFP was issued. So if there was something reimagined for a non-hotel project on this site, that would have to be approved by the agency. That would also be an amendment to the DDA.
And then the second question is, I don't remember, is all that one piece of property? Or would it have to be, say it came back to the city or urban renewal, can they take ownership of what exists and they've built on, and the city retain ownership of the piece of ground that was at one point going to be the hotel?
Yeah, they do have ownership of the entire site. I can't remember how we did the split. Is there a lot line adjustment? So they're separate parcel.
So that's possible.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Hilty? Thank you, Mark. Stephen? I know you've probably spent a lot of sleepless nights running through all the what-ifs. So how do you see that piece of property playing out?
Chair, Commissioners, thank you so much for your time, and I just want to start off by saying how impressed I am with Mark and Sandra and their team and all the research they've done. I mean, just high-quality individuals. You could probably see the passion in the PowerPoint that they shared. But just working with them, I tried to imbibe them with the cultures and the values of Caldwell and some of the knowledge that's based here in the city. And they were already there. They're 2 steps ahead of me. They've done their research and obviously put a lot of time and effort and energy into the process. So really appreciate them. And then DeChase Mixes, Dean and his team, they were just very selective as to who might be located next to their project. So I think all those things considered showed a lot of goodwill on behalf of the process and
showed that they were taking it very seriously, as they would if they were one of us, Caldwell residents that just cared deeply about the outcome of the process. And unfortunately, due to the variables that were outside of their control and ours, quite frankly, the outcome of the process was not as auspicious as we would have liked it to be. And we don't have a crystal ball, so we don't necessarily know what the future holds. And it's just a very precarious time for hotel development, as was mentioned in the PowerPoint and then in the information that was shared just recently. So all that to say, I look at the property, look at the site. It's approximately 0.52 acres collectively, and the city has some immediate needs. We looked at it as staff and just talked a little bit about what could be done there, the future, how we could plan this thing out. Of course, with the hotel, we already envisioned that would be there, but relative to the outcome of the process, we looked at it and said, well, what else could it be and how could we use it otherwise? And we have some more immediate needs in the city at this point, at this juncture. Obviously, parking is one thing, and Mr. Garcia brought that up, but we also have some staging needs and those types of things. But parking is obviously a top priority in that particular area. So we looked at that and said, gosh, we could maybe consider that as an opportunity for, parking lot or temporary parking lot, and then have it be redeveloped in the future when the economic uncertainties were behind us and the volatility wasn't as extreme as it is today. So I think putting it back in the hands of the agency is something that staff would recommend, and saying, well, we could issue an RFP in the future whenever the economy is going to improve. And then we can look at maybe even a future hotel development at that property or another type of development in the future. So it just gives us a little more flexibility. I think in the short term, though, to answer your question, Chair, of course, parking comes to mind, but other needs could be met by using that property in different ways. So that was what staff had talked about at length, and it was something that I think that as we move forward, that's something that the agency can consider with the process. Either way, an amendment to the DDA would be, something that we have to do. But that was something that I think that staff would look at as an immediate opportunity. So with that said, I'm happy to stand for any further questions you guys might have relative to the process.
Ms. Warwick?
Use it for something short-term, like parking, reserve our ability to put a hotel downtown for later, use it require a large investment so that we do have that ability, because I think it's a perfect place for a hotel, and maybe it's just because I have such fond memories of Saratoga being there for so many years. I worked there, and it's the perfect place for a hotel because of everything that's going on around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Commissioner Warwick, I can tell you firsthand, I've talked to 5 or 6 groups that really were brought to the table as a result of this process. So I think a hotel in the future is not off the table by any stretch. It's just, I think the timing didn't line up with the process, unfortunately. So we just have to kind of look at our other needs that are out there and consider other opportunities. So thank you for those comments.
Sure.
Yes.
Just one final comment. This one's kind of a little off tangent, but of course this is where my mind goes, as you know, Steve. But at some point, I'd like to know how much money we put into the land to get it ready to go for the chase as well. So if we spent, whether it's the soil surveys or things of that nature, again, it doesn't mean the chase won't come back with another plan or something different, but just so we have that figure for our taxpayers of how much was spent on the land to get it ready to go. So I won't put you on the spot, Raylan, right now, but maybe at the next meeting. Thank you.
That's a great point. We'll get to work on that and take a deeper dive into what that looks like.
Any other questions? Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Pape, could you come up again? From your perspective at 30,000 feet, what would you like to see happen? Would you like to see us modify the contract, or what's your preferred way forward?
I've thoroughly enjoyed working with this group and the community and the city. I would love to continue to engage in finding what the best solution is there. If it's time, we're not going anywhere. We are a neighbor. If it's a temporary solution, we've built those too. So we'd love to just engage and have a conversation on what the community needs now and what they may need in the future. I don't have a vision of exactly what that's going to be. You guys live here day in and day out. we're lucky enough to be a partner of that, and we'd like to continue that partnership. But ultimately, there's legal parts of our agreement right now that we need to work through and figure out what's best for the parcel. If we're able to help you continue to work forward and find a solution in the future, we'd love that opportunity. If it's giving the property back, that's an option too. But being a neighbor, we hope that consideration would be there to continue conversation for whatever that future use of that parcel is going to be.
Any last questions for Mr. Pepe? Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, time for some discussion. What's your wish?
Is there a timeline where we have to make a decision, something has to be corrected? Is there a period of time where we have to reach some?
Commissioners, by the end of 2024, the Chase would have to break ground on the hotel. So there's a little bit of time. In order to meet that deadline, they're going to need to be going, I assume, in the spring with something. But we don't have to make a decision tonight. And whatever you decide, of course, we're going to have to negotiate with the Chase because it is a contract amendment. That's kind of a non-answer. We have a little bit of time, maybe is a better way to say it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Doty?
But if we were gonna give them some more time, clearly with the holidays, they'll be on us here before we know it. It'd be nice to let folks park there, and maybe even if it takes a couple of different contracts or agreements, I mean, I would certainly be open to that, to allowing the public to park there, especially coming up here soon for the holiday season, so.
I completely agree. If we're going to put things on hold, let's get some use out of it in some fashion.
Correct, I agree.
I agree. I think parking is the best option. Obviously, we want to amend that contract. It'd be more for an extension. I think there's too much invested in a hotel at this point with this group that we'd hate for it to disappear, just because they have the most insight of what we're trying to do and what they know is here, and they could attract a better, I think, project for that location. So I truly think that a parking spot or parking for that would also support the future development that's going there, along with the current residents that'll be moving in. I think it'll attract more people to that development and want to rent from the Chase's project. I think it's more alluring, and of course, once it's time to put in a hotel, hopefully a parking garage will be in the development at that time.
Does that sound like a reasonable way forward?
Works for me, yes.
Temporarily, I would agree with that.
Could you turn that into a motion, perhaps, and then we'll...
I make a motion that we turn the existing property into parking, a flat parking location, and then for temporary use, and amend the contract for an extension.
We have a motion by Mr. Garcia. Do we have a...
Chairman, I have a question.
Just more.
Where does the insurance and liability and all of that, by doing that, what does that cost? What comes with that? Is it already covered?
We have construction costs for
Property currently owned by
Yeah, and it sounds like we got plenty of time to do that, so I think we need to do it right and that everybody's comfortable with it. So yeah, okay.
I've got one more too after that.
You got something as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
my thinking is, and I love these guys, but if the city takes back the property and owns the property, then we would put the parking lot in. But if we do an extension, as Mr. Garcia is saying, and they're gonna keep some interest in it,
Mhm.
I would see them needing to do the parking lot, make that construction.
Or maybe it could be shared.
Yeah, something of that nature.
Mr. Doty?
Well, again, just mine on that, knowing how much we put into the property would be a nice figure to have and working those out. But I agree, I think it needs to be paved, even if temporarily, and working out who's responsible for that based on how much money we put into it already. But I think the reward for the Chase is that we're also gonna give them time to, we're not just gonna try and snatch it from them, that we're gonna try and work with them to figure out what's best for their company. So I think there has to be some back and forth there, so.
Any other comments? We've got a motion, we need a second.
Second?
Is that a motion,
Oh.
or are we just doing instructions to staff?
How do we want to handle this, Mr. Hilty?
Add all that to his motion.
Yeah.
All right,
Right.
okay.
And then we need to hold off on it, yeah.
Very good. Very good. So Adam gave you a gist, you adjusted it, and there was other comments, so you've got a clear direction. Okay, very good. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, folks, for being here tonight. You're welcome to stay if you like, or you're welcome to leave if you like that better. Thanks for boiling it down, Adam. This takes us to action item number 4, and that's some housekeeping, the election of chair and vice chair for the Urban Renewal Agency Board of Commissioners, effective July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2024. How do we want to proceed? We need to elect a chair.
I make a motion that we re-elect Mr. Porter as chair of this August committee.
Twice. I'm just double
Oh,
stamping it.
Okay, we have a motion and a
I second
second.
that.
Do we have any other discussion? Let's not prolong this. Would the secretary call the roll?
Are you gonna vote no?
I'm gonna abstain. That's just not good to vote for yourself. Yes.
Commissioner Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yeah.
Commissioner Moore?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Allgood?
Definitely.
Commissioner Garcia?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Porter?
Yeah, he's stepped out. He's
vacation.
abstaining.
Yes.
Thank you very much, you guys. I really enjoy this. It's fun work, and you guys are fun people. Also, we need to elect a vice chair, and I would nominate Julie. She did a great job in my absence, and I appreciate that very much.
Based on her performance last week, or last month, I would second that in a heartbeat, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick? Aye, sure. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Told you last, you could have abstained from the vote, but you
Yeah.
didn't know. It could have went either way there for a second.
All right, thanks, everybody. It takes us to action item number 5, to consider invoices for payment. Back to you, Ray Lynn.
So there's quite a bit of invoices this month because it's kind of our quarterly with the city. So I'll just read them off really quickly. $9,805 for the June attorney services, $3,195.81 for the project number 4, $18,846.89 for project number 9, $33,159.71 for project number 9, $2,366,491.64 for project 1, $24,274 for project 11, $18,000 for the July economic development contributions. $4,242 for Project 8. $22 for, these are just basic operating for nameplates for the commissioners. $92.85 for basic operating, for property tax for Kimball and Arthur. $4,725 for Project 8. $4,575 for Project 7. $175,607 for Project 13. $251,754.91 for Project 2. $4,770.01 for Project 18. $44,825.50 for Project 17. $3,660.27 for Project 5. $348,323 for Project 14. $124,019.65 for Project 22. $67,335.85 for Project 10, and $19,950 for Project 20, for a total of $3,527,666.09.
Raylan, would you read those again for us? No, we can ask.
Can I just say ditto?
Mr. Doty.
Ray Lynn, how's the budget looking? I know that when we proposed these and as we came to the end, some things were going over budget, and we talked about some projects that we may have to cancel or stop or ask the city for if we can't reach that end. So I just guess I'm asking you, how's it looking?
So the total budget is looking really good. However, there are some projects that are actually going over budget. And I was actually going to bring it up in my financial report because I was going to ask you if I could bring a list of projects that were going over budget that we could prioritize, that we could actually use the money a little bit quicker. And then the projects that we do not, because we do want to use the urban renewal cash. And then the projects that, we would still get all the projects done, but then the projects that are essentially not started yet or haven't billed yet would just switch to city instead of urban renewal. So I wanted to bring that to you next month if that was a possibility for you guys to sign off on.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doty.
I think we should prioritize them, absolutely. I don't know if just switching them to the city, though, and that's my concern, is that those projects may just have to be canceled, because clearly the city council didn't vote on those projects, right? We voted on them here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where my question came from. If we haven't started some projects, we may very well need to start looking at that list and
We could
canceling
definitely-
projects versus switching that expense to the city.
I can definitely bring it and bring that list in, then we can kind of talk about it. And
I would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, I was hoping maybe you could bring us, the numbered projects and showing us exactly where each project
it
is.
should be in your project, it should be in your list, is it not,
It
in your packet?
Yeah,
It's
did you
there.
get one like that?
Oh, okay.
So this doesn't include current invoices, but it does include, last month's invoices. So this is not including the ones that I just listed, but it does include last month's invoices, so.
Any other questions? Chris?
This is kind of off the subject, but when Urban Renewal pays the city of Caldwell $2.3 million for a project,
Mhm.
how does that look on the city of Caldwell's revenue side of it? Is that on their budget, when the street department gets a influx of $2.3 million, what does that look like?
So the street, it's revenue into the street department. So that's how that looks. And unfortunately, last year in fiscal year 23, it wasn't necessarily budgeted correctly. So like the street department right now looks like it's over appropriated in revenue by all these urban renewal funds. So,
Yeah.
but there's an expense and a revenue to offset it. So it's exactly the same amount.
So we'll correct those numbers at the end of the,
Yes, in the budget amendment, we will.
okay.
Yes.
And then the second question, and I don't know that you can answer this, but $44,000 for parking lot design? It's just a parking lot, correct?
I can't tell you why the design cost would cost $44,000, but that is what we got billed. So that is, and we would have had a contract or something that would have come through as well, so.
Okay,
Yeah, it's very high.
that's a lot. I'm aware, we're all aware of the parking lot. It's not like a big parking lot. It's just wings on the ball field. So it just seems like an incredible amount of money to design a parking lot. That's just me. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Just
going through all of this, and that was the only thing that stuck out in my mind of what that was the question, but everything else seems to dot to dot. And I think she did a good job putting all that together, so thank you.
Do we have a motion as to, considering invoices for payment?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Doty, a second by Ms. Warwick. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Opie?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes. Takes us to, item number 6, approve the monthly cash reconciliation reports.
So as you can see, our total cash in the, our total cash is $15,277,907.74. Of that, we received, tax increment funds of $335,877.44. That is split between East Urban Renewal of $331.91.89 and North Urban Renewal of $4,785.55. You can see the different buckets. We are slowly starting to use the cash, so our interest payments are slowly going down, but not significantly. So we did earn interest of $21,132.54. We do still have money invested in LGIP, and we did earn interest of $3,035.05 in there. So we do have a total of $766,114.52. Now, I know you guys were concerned when I talked about using a cash balance for 2024 budget. In this, it would come from the URA operations budget. That's where that cash would come from. So, there is over $1 million between the LGIP and the URA operations. So do have a little bit of time before the north increment comes in. That's the hope. So
Any questions? Excuse me.
we did receive a little bit of interest on our bond. The second page looks like this. We should be paying it off this next month. That total balance is $757,958.95. So when we paid off the other bond, we did receive interest back. The hope is that we will get a little bit of interest back from this one as well. So.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to approve the monthly cash reconciliation?
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Warwick, a second by Mr. Garcia. Would the secretary call the roll?
Warwick? Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Opie?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Takes us to Part B of the Treasurer Report, an update report on the project list.
We can talk about the project list. Part of the project list that I did get an update from Rob, and most of the projects are in process and due to be completed. The big one that I know that has not been started is the Plaza Extension Festive Street. So that's the big one that has not been started. It's not gone up for RFP yet. So that is the biggest one. The two projects that I know are over budget that we're looking to spend is the U-stick widening. That's going to be a big portion of it. And the other one, I had it at the top of my list. I do not have it with me, but I can email it to you guys. I apologize. So, but we do also have a couple that are coming in under budget. So with the list next week, we have a couple that we'll have to reprioritize, and then a couple that we do have going over budget. So those are it's kind of a double-edged sword. But we do have, the other thing that we have that we're looking at, because we're making sure that we have everything obligated, there's a couple, the Westfield and the Rice House, those two projects. So we have received a request for payment from those. However, those items have not been completed. And so usually we like to pay after the job has been completed. But this is one of those items, you know, so it's one of those that we're looking and making sure and contacting both College of Idaho and, College of Idaho. I always get it confused. I apologize. And then, Caldwell Housing Authority. Goodness. And making sure that they get those invoices to us and the projects have been completed so that we can get those payments made. So, because those are part of the issue, so.
Okay, any questions for Raylan?
Mr. Chairman, so just to clarify,
Mhm.
the payments are being requested by, on the Rice House and who?
For the Westfield
Oh,
heating
okay.
facility.
Yeah.
So,
And those cannot be paid, or they should be paid?
well, it's not best practice to pay before, like, the project has been completed. That's,
But considering the relationships that we have, we still want to make payment though, right? With
we
those two?
could do that, but it's not necessarily
Right.
best practice, so. We don't necessarily recommend it,
Yep.
so. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for the report. Brings us to our economic development reports. First up is Mr. Jenkins.
All right, Chair, Commissioners, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly this evening. I'll start off with Project Bright. This is a large industrial user that will bring high-tech jobs to the Caldwell region. We've been working with this group for a series of months now, and they're looking at occupying a 250,000 square foot building. So excited about this group coming in. They're actually reviewing incentives at this point, so we're working with them to get that project from to the finish line. So working diligently to make sure they have everything that they need to evaluate the property and the opportunity here in Caldwell. Project Richard, they are considering a large-scale project in Caldwell, looking to fill voids in the Caldwell community that will cater to Canyon County and the greater Treasure Valley as a whole. So that's an exciting one as well. Project Avery, this is a retailer. They're interested in the Caldwell region. They have a strong brand within the Treasure Valley and the Mountain West. They're planning a site visit later this month or early August. We're still working out the dates there. Project Paces, they're a large retailer that is still highly interested in Caldwell. They're looking at numerous sites in the area. And then Project Bengal, we're meeting with this large grocer later in July, rather, that's a misprint, not June, to discuss a property in East Caldwell. And then Project Lansing, this is a group that is in the Sky Ranch area. They're seeking a contractor for their project currently. Construction to kick off for the next couple months. And then Fat Guys Fresh Deli, another misprint here. They're actually looking at opening later or early this fall. So they've been pushed back a little ways. This is a group that's looking to occupy space within North Ranch, right in front of D&B. And the VA Clinic, which is also in North Ranch, they're moving into their new building in August. Genesis Healthcare is purchasing their former building, which will expand. Genesis is expanding clinic operations in the Canyon County. They're currently located in Garden City, although they have a presence here in Canyon County, a smaller presence, but they're going to expand their footprint. And then North Ranch as a whole is almost 100% spoken for. Plans are emerging for the full build out of the area. We're working with a bunch of retail users and industrial users, and it's really exciting to see that area blossom the way that it has. Project Yonke, we're working on a site plan for a potential site of interest on this large grocer considering the East Caldwell region. And then Federated Ordnance, this is a group that's occupying space at 1906 Mead Parkway, which is in the Sky Ranch Industrial Park. They're working on a wave of hires since July 5th, just a few days ago. Jobs are starting at $25 an hour. And then also they're working on investments inside the building that would add to their overall investment that they're making, which is quite massive. So we're really excited about the plans that are emerging from that point, from their standpoint. Project P, so moving on to North Caldwell, which is our new urban renewal area. Project P&W, they're back in the mix. I've had some dialogue with their site selector. They're interested in kickstarting discussions about development and annexation and timing. So we're working through some of those questions and timelines for how things might come together for their project. And then annexation as a whole, we're still working on a holistic annexation plan for the region. The application for annexation should be coming very, very soon. We're working with a property owner that is the next in line to annex their property. So we're hopeful that we'll have that sooner than later. And then just shifting downtown, we're fine tuning our parking study results with Kimley Horn. We'll have updates shortly. I'm working personally with 3 groups on a paid parking strategy for downtown Caldwell. And I'll bring that also to the workshop to talk more with council and so that we can better understand the plan for how we'll initiate parking downtown, a paid parking strategy downtown. And then I am working with the group GMI Post. They are a constituent of the Japan Times. Japan Times is 126 years old. They're read in over 100 countries. They're looking at doing a report on Idaho, and they're looking at a special on Caldwell specifically. So that is a really exciting piece that would be broadcast internationally. So excited about the work that we might be doing with them. And then additional updates, demand remains strong for smaller office space in downtown Caldwell. You guys will see the tenant improvements in place for a space that's adjacent to Cushing Terrell, which is above Amano. There's a space there that's being worked on for office space. So again, Class A space is in pretty high demand, but smaller space is what folks seem to be looking for. And then the Vineyard Project downtown and Festival Street, we're looking at maybe pushing that out to early next year, but we're trying, those are on the books, of course, as Raylene just talked about. And of course, we're still working through the plans on that. And then affordable housing is in critically high demand. There's a national study that just came out that talked about a deficit of 7.3 million homes across the nation for extremely low income renters, which is 30% of the area median income, which is the AMI. And we have some affordable housing projects within the city of Caldwell that will help fill that void. Prospector Point is one of them. It's 504 units. On average, the units are going to be 70% AMI. They will have some units that cater to under 30% AMI, which is something that we've been trying to work on in economic development. And then Westview Loft, Phase 2, that's one that's currently being worked through. And then, of course, Norfolk Apartments, which is senior housing, that's on Chicago, that's currently under construction. So that cater to a more subsidized user that would be occupying space at that development. So with that, that's all I have. Chair and Commissioners, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Jenkins?
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Warwick?
Do you have any idea where Amano is at in the process of
I do, Chair, Commissioner Warwick. I'll start off with Amano. They have been just very great to work with. I know we've worked with them internally a bunch on their plans, and they're committed to the site and the redevelopment of the project. They are working, of course, we're waiting on the final report from the environmental group that has done some analysis on the property. So that's really the only outlying issue that they're waiting on. So once we can finalize that and get that in their hands, we do have a preliminary report that was provided that gives them a good idea of the condition of the soils on the property, but they're just waiting on that final report to get done. So still working through the details on it, and they're still very committed to doing that project. And then Kimball and Blaine, that project is underway as well. I'm working with the developer on that, which is RRC Contractors. They have worked with, they have the second floor fully occupied with tenants already, which is terrific before a project even starts. And then the first floor, they have a restaurant group that they have been working with for quite some time, and they're talking to additional restaurants that would occupy space as well. I did look at a site plan that was shared with me as recent as this past Friday, and the project looks great as we had anticipated. So yeah, plans are still well underway. They're filling in with the demo project, they're filling it back in and just preparing the site for redevelopment. So that project is still moving as well. Absolutely.
Mr. Doty?
David, did you say the VA clinic's moving?
Absolutely, Commissioner Doty. Yep, they're relocating from their current building in Sky Ranch to a new facility in North Ranch, a larger facility.
Where I need to go. I appreciate that.
Feeling poorly?
Well, no, just, you gotta know those things when you get close to retirement.
I'll make sure you get a postcard.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Stephen. In your travels right now with the current rate, cost of money, what's that, and say this is the new norm, what do you think it's gonna be like in your observations and travels? What do you think that's gonna do here in the next 3-5 years?
Yeah, Commissioner Moore, it's tricky. I think people are settling into the new norm, as they say, with the interest rates being where they're at. I know that projects are still moving in Caldwell, but these are primarily projects that have been planned or forecast before all the volatility took place. So I have seen some groups that are reluctant to move forward, but I've seen others that just have to move forward. So of course, market demand and those things and consumer demand are pushing projects to move despite these conditions. So Caldwell is so well positioned, and there's so much promise in this community that I think developers are saying, well, we know that money costs a lot more and projects are more expensive and supplies are obviously higher as well, but they're still pushing, knowing that Caldwell is going to produce and is just that an area that's going to continue to blossom with activity. So although we did see a slight lull in the market, we've seen things pick up of late, which is really encouraging for what the future could look like.
Another question. Say this hotel, thing just goes away and it turns out to be a parking lot here for a while. Is there any, in your travels, are there any private owners here locally that maybe could be approached for another option for a hotel in this area? Or is that the only place where a hotel can go?
Yeah, Commissioner Moore, our staff we've been approached by a group that is still wanting to do a hotel in this market, and I think it's folks that are a little more reliant on the conditions of the economy. I think are the ones that are reluctant to push through on projects, but they have other groups that are not as reliant on these external conditions that are still proceeding with plans. One of which, of course, is a group that we've talked to, but we've heard from others that have an interest as well. I think as it relates to the property that was aforementioned in earlier discussions, one of the things that folks that emphasized to me was that they really liked the site and the proximity to the plaza, but felt as though, at least currently, that it was a little more tucked away on Main Street, and it wasn't really a focal point for a property that they would like to bring, a project that they would like to bring into the community. So they've looked at other sites and other opportunities that may be more appealing. So I do think that we have a shorter horizon for a hotel project in downtown Caldwell, and I'm optimistic that of the groups that have approached our office and have talked to our team, I think we'll see plans emerge in the very near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Ophelia, it's your turn.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sorry, I fell asleep there a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start with downtown updates. Myself and my leg fell asleep, so we'll make this quick. Project Care. So I'm going to go ahead and just get to the point here. It's been a challenge finding 6,000 square feet of space to meet their needs. However, they're not giving up on Caldwell. They found a Meridian location, which is going wonderful for them. They are College of Idaho alumni, so they do want to bring their projects to Caldwell. Project 9, another update. This local business, downtown business, has identified a couple options to purchase, so we are working with them closely to make sure that happens. And a couple new projects. Project B, future Idaho resident seeking space for a boutique hotel. These individuals will be relocating from Oregon to Idaho, and so they're currently in the discovery phase, seeking options and learning more about our community. Project Ranch, local retail stores seeking larger space have outgrown their space. And again, these are local downtown businesses. Project Juice is a well-established Caldwell restaurant seeking to open another concept, seeking to open an option that we are lacking in our downtown. We've explored a couple of spaces, and they are hoping to identify a space by January. Project Suite is seeking options to grow their business via investors. We connected them with a few that we know, so hopefully this Project Suite will continue to grow. Project Ocean, Canyon County retail shop seeking a new location in Caldwell. So they're currently not in Caldwell, they're located in another Canyon County city, and they're looking to move into our area. A couple of changes. 619, which is the Mill Olive, or for most of you, the Pet Haven building. That has been purchased by a new owner, and so that's under new ownership with a possible end user already in place. Rediscover Books, as you all heard, via social media, it is closing their Caldwell location, and they are possibly looking in August of closing that location. There's grand openings. Rosoni's Pizza is opening. They will be across the new DeBartolo project on the boulevard. And then just one more change for most of you who lived in Caldwell. I believe it's 921 Cleveland Boulevard, the old radio, KCID radio station or KDIO radio station. That was recently purchased. If you drive by there tonight, you'll see that there's been an amazing facelift. So that awning, yellow awning, gone. Those paid-in-loan signs are completely gone. So that will be on the market this Wednesday, and we're hoping for a great end user for that space. And she's looking for, if you all know, and I did let her know that I would be speaking tonight, she's looking for this, there was this sphere on, she's looking for that, so if you know where that's at, she's looking to put that back, let me know. And that's my report for tonight.
KCID logo?
I think a little bit of paint will do.
Yeah.
That corner looks so nice.
Yeah.
I know someone that was a radio announcer there when I was a radio name. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Ophelia?
Ophelia, is there any, is there somebody going to move into the Rediscovered Book location?
It's for sale.
Or is
It's for sale. So, the owners have been on vacation, so I haven't received any update in terms of if there has been any interest. I believe the building, and don't quote me on this, might be for 2.9, and that includes the parking lot as well with the bookstore.
Wow.
Everybody was reaching for their checkbook at that. Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Hilty, time for our attorney reports.
Favorite update.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to take my items in reverse order because I think we might spend a little bit more time talking about Aztec. I don't think I've reported to you on this, but the agency had received notice from Canyon County that they intended to subject, we thought, 10 properties owned by the agency to property taxes. That decision was appealed, and I guess to kind of fast forward through the 10, one of them was determined to be owned by the city, which was exempt. Of the remaining 9, on appeal, the county commissioners granted the exemption for agency-owned properties. There was one that they did not. That property is where the old Norman's Jewelry location was. And the reason they didn't is because it was leased by the agency, and that does eliminate the exemption. So there certainly is basis for that. It's no longer it's no longer there, but it's no longer leased, of course. And so it's a little bit of a divided issue as to how much tax would be owed on that. Here's our recommendation. The taxes that would be charged on that site are $1,121.06. We think, at least in my office, that this sort of falls into the category of don't sweat the small stuff. With County Commissioner Brooks, we've had kind of a similar conversation about, there's a way to get along there. We obviously are still working on an issue having to do with the payment of tax delinquencies, interest and penalties as increment to the agency, which I think we're trying to get a meeting scheduled. But, I think moving forward through some of these issues, rather than, fighting tooth and nail is certainly, I think, the way that he has suggested we approach some of the issues. This falls in that category as far as we're concerned. There is a basis for charging taxes, whether we charge $1,121 or whether it's some lesser amount because it wasn't leased for the entire tax year, we think is probably not worth fussing over. As was mentioned by Stephen, RRC is in the process of going to be redeveloping that site. It's going to be in private ownership, which we all want. It's going to be subject to taxes, which we all want. And so we also have the right to appeal it again, for the 2024 tax year. So for now, we're just going to let it go. Raylene will have to pay that. and unless you instruct me to do differently, we'll probably just communicate formally to the county that we appreciate what they've done for us, we appreciate them listening to us, and we're good with it. I'm seeing head nods, so we won't pursue that. Okay, let's talk Aztec development. Two issues here that I want to address tonight. One of them is the timing and the delay that we continue to encounter, and I've got some specific recommendations for how to deal with that. The other one I want to deal with is the site plan. Now, I mentioned this in passing at the last meeting. I was under the impression that that site plan had been shared with you at the prior meeting, which would have been the May meeting that I was not able to attend. I think there was some confusion on that. I did send it out by email after last month's meeting, and then I got a call from Commissioner Allgood, who had some concerns about that design. So I want to talk about that 7-story concept plan tonight and sort of where we're at with that. So let's start with the timing. As I've continually reported to you, this got sideways when we abandoned sort of the schedule of performance. There was a delay in the Alta survey and the environmental assessment. Then there was a delay that resulted from Idaho Power needing to tell us what they wanted on that site. Mr. Senga was arguably willing to cooperate with us, but it took some time to find out exactly what Idaho Power was going to need. So we got off of our schedule of performance. And the difficulty with that is, in the face of delays, you look at that schedule of performance, which has hard dates in it, and the contract says that time is of the essence of the contract. And what that means is if you blow by a deadline, that is a material breach of contract, which would entitle the agency to pursue remedies, whatever remedies those might be. I've been working, as I've reported before, to get us back to where we have hard deadlines. Here's what happened in the last month. We had agreed that what needed to happen was to get the reuse appraisal going, and there needed to be some design work done in order to have that reuse appraisal. I set up a meeting. I sent out available dates on June 16th for a meeting between Aztec representatives and Mountain States Appraisal that does the reuse appraisal. They said, the appraisers said, well, we're available till the end of the month, so if we can do it in the next couple of weeks, that'd be great. Sent that to Mr. Sang, and then they said, then starting the 1st of July, we're out. Sent that to Mr. Sanga. He said, well, I'm not available until the end of the month, but I will be available the 1st of July. So I immediately responded, said, let's have the meeting anyway without you there, or if you're wherever you are, if you can participate by electronic means, let's do that. And the response was, no, I'm not willing to not be there. I have to, Mr. Sanga, have to be there, and no, wherever I'm going to be, I'm not available by electronic means. At that point, I kind of shifted gears, and I think I talked to Jim, to you, or we emailed about it maybe while you were still in Spain. We see where this is going, and there's context here for what happened with this design plan, Chris, that I'm going to get to. But on the timing, I did get an email today from Ann Kunkel, his attorney, saying, hey, we're ready to have this meeting now. Let's get it on the calendar. We have a 60-day notice of default provision in the contract with them, meaning that if we think that they are in breach, then we send them a notice saying you got 60 days to cure. I'm inclined to do that if you give me the green light, to say, look, whatever delays to our schedule of performance occurred, they're long since passed. We're out of compliance with the time requirements, and we think that you're in default. And here's your 60-day notice. We got 2 months to figure it out, and we'll see what happens in the 2 months. But I think we got to get that time frame going. It's a contractual obligation. It runs both ways. If they think that we're in default, they have to give us that notice as well. It's similar in all of our DDAs. And then see if they want to have a meeting and that we want to talk about what the next steps are. They want to get a schedule of performance in place. We can look at doing that. The reason I like that is I want to get those hard dates back in place so that if there's a breach, we have a very clean argument. Right now, we know that there's been a delay. We've never reset those dates. Whose responsibility is it? How legitimate have these delays been? I want to get past those issues. So this isn't an action item. I guess what I'm inclined to do is prepare that letter, get it out the door, and if you're okay with that, we'll start moving in that direction. Any concerns about that?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Doty.
I'm absolutely in favor of the 60-day letter. So I just want to
I
put
wish
that
it
out
was
there.
6 days.
I do too.
Yeah.
He's already
Yeah.
had plenty of time, so I think we should send him the letter.
Any, contrary opinion?
All right. Let's talk about the design. So when way back, when Ken was submitting his original concept, and we were working with him, even back to the days of the response to the RFP, he was asking questions about the flexibility of modifying his design. And we see that regularly. This is not an unusual thing. These developers come in and they spend some bucks on conceptual plans, but they do tend to change. And he was saying, well, what if I don't want to do 2 stories? What if I want to do 4 stories? And as staff, we kind of said, well, that has to be approved by the agency, but if you're going to be expanding the scope of your project, they're probably going to be good with it, right? It's going to increase the investment, it's going to increase the tax revenue, it's going to increase the downtown and the available space. And so he was operating under that assumption, and I would tell him that again, and I'd tell any developer that. If you want to expand your project, you're more likely to get approval as opposed to contracting it from what you told us what you would do. So he sent this concept plan out, and then didn't really say anything about it. It just kind of landed with a thud. Here's what I want to do. Okay. And then at some point, the message that was given to me was, well, I'm not going to go forward on anything until I know whether this is approved. Now, this had been a pattern for Ken. He said that with respect to the Alta survey. I can't do anything until the Alta survey's back. That's the agency's responsibility. I can't do anything until the environmental report is back. I can't do anything until we have this discussion about parking. I can't do anything until I know what Idaho Power is going to require as pad site. When I heard that, my immediate reaction was to wave it out of the way. Oh, it came with another one too. I'm talking to the owner of the building that does the nails, the manicure stuff next door. Can we put things on hold until I negotiate that? And then it was also, maybe I could use the air rights above the alley to expand my development. I began to say no. And I'm sorry if I jumped out in front of you. I kind of had a sense of what we were doing there. And I just kept saying, you're going to have to, and I didn't do it myself. I was talking with the economic development team. Jim, I think I had you included on some of those. But I perceived these as efforts to delay. I wasn't willing to accommodate open-ended further negotiation on these things. I did talk to Brent about the air rights above the alleyway. That was not something that was going to work from sort of an infrastructure perspective. But I did the same thing with this concept plan. I think I sent it to Brad and I sent it to Jim and I said, can I just tell him yes, so that we can keep this thing moving and, quit the delays. And I think you guys weighed in, at least initially, enough for me to communicate that. So that concept plan was not vetted the way that it should have been. I apologize to Chris. I apologize to the rest of you. But that's why we moved forward on it. I was at a point where I didn't really think it was going to happen. And I had reported to you before. I felt like my mission was to get this thing to the point where it was either going to have to go forward or it was going to go away. And the thing that I was and have been trying to avoid is further delay. So that's how that happened. It has been communicated to him that 7-story concept is acceptable. If we need to revisit that, we can do that. We don't have an action item for it tonight, but we can certainly bring it back and review it, during this, 60-day interim here. My sense of this is that it's going to be more beneficial to wave it out of the way and push than to decide, whether this is appropriate downtown. Chris raised some good points with me on the phone. It's a lot more residential. Units are extremely small. There may be a market for that. We really don't micromanage a developer who wants to invest, and, you know, we trust them, I guess, to know what the market will bear. But anyway, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that way and kind of seek your direction on what to do about this site plan.
I can give my 2 cents if you want. You know, some of the residential downtown already by the Chase is fairly small, so I'm for the smaller. It doesn't really make it that much more affordable. I think theirs is $1,200 in rent for a studio or something like that. So I'm for that. I gotta be quite honest, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. And so I think that's why I was in agreement, kind of the same with what you just told, is let's get him committed to something, to get him moving, to stop the delays. Again, I think, I made that decision based off of, I just don't think he's gonna move forward. I mean, how long have we been doing this now? At least since I've been on the urban renewal. That's why I'm in favor of the 60-day letter. Show us something, and, just to add to that, that even if he comes back with a plan, it hasn't been finalized by anyone here, right? So, in the end, you'd still have your choice of whether you're gonna go with that or not.
I'm kind of in opposition to Commissioner Doty. When Mr. Senga started this, and I like him, he seems like a nice guy, but when he started this project, I think we were talking like nine residential units, it was a very small number. And then it increased to, and the original plan, when this first started out, if my memory is sticking right, the responsibility was on Mr. Senga to find parking for his, and so then he expanded the number of residents he had, and he came back to us and asked for the city to provide 25 parking permits. Right. So we increased again, and then we're back again, and approximately 34 units with only 25 parking spaces a block away. And I'm asking myself, what kind of people are going to rent a 700 square foot room with no car and the 6th floor of a building on right downtown? And so my concern is, having experienced buildings downtown with residents in them before, they are people who just sort of exist down here and go to the downtown bars and that kind of thing. But I think it is I think we have reached a point of, this is a terrible design. I mean, I'm not a fan of downtown residences anyway, but when we're up to 34 rooms, 700 square foot rooms with 0 parking, I think we have we've gone past feasibility in my opinion. And then the fact that this thing is continually getting strung out, I agree, a 60-day letter should be a 6-day letter. I don't think, my other opposing point of view is, I don't think Mr. Senga is just gonna walk away from this project. He has bought the property next door, and he's got a heavy investment in it. I think he is going to push this and fight this as absolutely long as his finances will allow him to do that, and I think he has considerable. So I don't think it's something we're gonna be able to wash our hands of and start over quickly, because he's got a lot invested in it.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
I agree with the 60-day letter, absolutely. Further, the 7-story building downtown, I mean, it's gonna be taller than a much larger building that Jason's building right now. It doesn't belong on that site. I don't think you can get it built on that site, and I think you need to go fight it out. We'll fight it out.
I'm in favor of a calling it 60-day letter, but I haven't seen anything on a 7-story proposal. Has anybody else who's seen it?
Oh, it's on there.
Mr. Hilty, has he got a letter of credit or approval on his financing on that?
Mm-mm.
How would that get financed?
He has to provide, there's deadline for providing proof of financing, I want to say it's 90 days prior to closing, which of course we're well within now, but, you know, again, the deadlines, by mutual agreement, starting early in the year, had sort of been abandoned. And some of that, it started with, not being able to get the Alta survey and the environmental done because of where the holidays fell. So, I mean, there was a delay that was our fault. And then there was a delay with Idaho Power that's out of our control. But the short answer is, there is a hard deadline for providing proof of financial ability, which would remain, which needs to be reset along with the other deadlines.
Just having a conversation with an investor out of California that is invested here in Caldwell. 700 square foot, 800 square foot apartment, very, very popular thing. Does draw a pretty good crowd of people. I'm all in favor with going up. I think this county needs to go up, but I'm not a builder and I'm not an architect. I think it's something to maybe talk about, but I haven't seen anything.
Mr. Chair. So we had an opportunity to take a look at it. That was sent to us by Debbie Dyer, a request by you. And so looking at it, it was very, very, very schematic. But I agree with Chair Wilwick that it's a very tall building. It's a very narrow site. To build it would be costly. But also the way it was laid out, there's a lot of, obviously, we don't micromanage, of course, these developers and designers, but there's a lot of code issues with it. A lot of it didn't make sense. It was even hard to tell which way the building was, what direction it was in, just because it was lacking a site plan. So it felt to me like it was just put together to keep us happy for now. And so, but at the same time, I haven't been involved in this as long as you guys have, and I do feel the frustration, but also know it shouldn't have taken this long to get through these processes and at least have a good direction. I'm sure in order to develop something like this, you got to have a pretty good pro forma, and whether that's been done by him or not, I'm not sure. But my experience working with developers in this type of project, it doesn't read like it does, just because, again, the conversation we had about how you can go in downtown Caldwell based on the soils report, it's going to be pretty difficult to do something this tall in this location. So that's just my quick glance at the project. And then just understanding the site a little bit, but I know it's been going on for a while. And so, but I think we need to stick with some hard deadlines as any case. That way they have something to work toward. If you leave an open check with anybody like that, they'll take advantage of it. So it's pretty common. I agree with, giving them a deadline of 60 days.
Well, Mr. Sanga has had this tendency to delegate things upward. He will hand things off to city staff or to his attorneys, or I've never seen him come through with anything on time as promised. And I don't know that we should trust him to do this moving forward. Even if he does comply within 60 days, I have no confidence that this will actually be built. So I think the direction is clear.
Yeah, it is. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, that takes us to item number 9, our commissioner reports. Who has a report? Nobody? Good. Time for a chairman report. I've expressed my thanks. I sure appreciate you guys and all the hard work, and I appreciate this team and the good work that it's doing. So on that note, we will accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Silence.
Thank you.
Hey, Chris, I'm gonna run, use the restroom. I said you wanted to talk for a second.
Maybe too late for the lottery ticket money.
Oh, I'm not worried about that.
Thank you.
There,
You have a win anyway.
on that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
thank you.
Adam.